Hey, today I'm going to put together some Slaanesh knights for my Warriors of Chaos for the Old World. So I'm currently doing a project where I'm making one of each unit in the book for each Mark of Chaos. Or maybe not every unit, but just my favorite units. So I'm making Warriors and Knights for all 5 marks. I'm doing all the Lords and Sorcerers with all their various mounts, Demon Princes, Forsaken, all the cool stuff. But today I'm doing Knights with the Mark of Slaanesh. And you can see I've already put together 4 of them. Here's the Champion. I'm not really sure what type of weapon he's supposed to have. The unit's going to have lances, but I try to go WYSIWYG, but the rule of cool always trumps that. Here's the Banner Bearer, and he actually has a mutation. He's got this 3rd arm that helps hold the banner. Hopefully you can see what I'm going for with these guys. They're riding the mounts of Slaanesh, but I wanted them to still look like Warriors of Chaos with their heavy armor, big horned helmets, bulky shoulder pads, and all that stuff. And this one here is the Musician. You can see he's got a horn, and his weapon is actually strapped on the back. I believe this comes from one of the big Mega Gargants, one of the big giants. And here's just a regular knight. I actually really like this guy. He came out a lot better than I expected. I usually make the command group first, and I use all my favorite bits for them. And then I kind of just use whatever's left over for the other 2 knights. But this guy turned out to be one of my favorites in the whole unit. I like his pose, and I like his crest on his head. So today in this video, I'm going to make the final knight and show you how I kitbash these things together and what parts I used. So the mounts obviously come from the new Slick Blades Seekers. That's really hard to say. But like I said, I really wanted the riders to still look like the heavily armored Chaos Warriors and not like the Slaanesh Hedonites. So for the bodies and the legs, I'm using Skull Crusher's bodies from Khorne, and I just scraped off all of the Khorne symbols. Some of the symbols, though, needed to be filled in rather than scraped off. So before assembling all these guys, I mixed up some green stuff and milliput mix, and I started working it into the deep recesses of the Khorne symbols. I like using 50% green stuff and milliput mix because it's kind of the best of both worlds. The green stuff doesn't crumble like milliput, but when you add milliput into it, it's not gummy and rubbery when it dries. It's hard and sandable. Okay, so once I've customized all the bits, now it's time to start figuring out how to get the legs attached to the mount. So I use the Skull Crusher legs, which are different from the Knight legs. The Knight legs are kind of molded together as one piece, and the thighs are sort of already removed, so it would fit on a horse. But these Skull Crusher legs, they're kind of independent, and it's the entire leg with nothing removed. So I need to remove some of the thigh so that it fits flush with the mount. And I try to remove as little as possible and do test fittings as I go, but you can see that here on the knee this little plate is kind of sticking out, so I have to remove that too, unfortunately. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit with a knife, and you can see it almost fits, but there's a couple bumps on the mount itself that I need to get rid of. It's got a little hip bone that sticks out, and some of the saddle parts are also sticking out a little bit too much. And then of course I repeated the process for the other leg. Whenever I'm kitbashing something like this, I always spend a ton of time test fitting over and over. Like 90% of my time I'm not cutting or gluing, or I'm just holding things together and imagining what it's going to look like when it's all done. So I'm trying to figure out here how this is going to fit, how high up the legs should go. I'm trying to imagine the full pose because it's really easy to make a goofy looking pose or really bad looking proportions, like a torso that's too short or too long, things like that. So I'm cutting out a lot of test fitting just for the sake of time. Okay, when I think I've got it, I like to do a test fit with some putty. I don't have any blue tack right now, so I'm using green stuff. Once I like the look, I'm going to do it for real, so I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the leg and to the mount, and then put some green stuff in between. And it's important to remember that the green stuff is not used to actually adhere and stick the leg to the horse. It's just there to fill the gaps, because these pieces weren't made to go together, and so I need more surface contact once it's on there, and while it's still soft, I'm going to remove some of the green stuff bits that came out through the creases, or maybe it got stuck to the model in an area where the leg isn't covering. I just want to remove any visible green stuff on the surface. And then what I also like to do is take some Tamiya extra thin cement or plastic glue or something like that and just rub it into the areas where the plastic is touching but where I haven't placed glue. Okay, and while that's curing, I'm going to test fit the upper body and kind of work on the pose. This weapon is supposed to be just a regular lance for a knight, but it kind of looks like a banner. I probably overbuilt it. By the way, most of it is from the Khorne Skull Crushers kit, but the top is from some Dark Elves kit. I'm not sure which one. But it looked really Slaanesh-y, so I thought it would fit. So I'm trying to figure out a good pose for the weapon and for the shield, as well as the head. So I'm just making sure that these horns don't hit anything. Probably not going to pick any shoulder pads that have large spikes sticking upward so it doesn't conflict with the horns. Now I really like this shield here. It comes from, I believe, the Be'lakor unit from Warcry. I'm not sure what they're called, but the Be'lakor aligned unit. I like this one because it has like a unicorn horn sticking off the front, and you know, Slaanesh knights are show-offs and flamboyant. And I thought maybe it looks like he stole it from some Bretonnian lady or something, because I think they ride unicorns, right? For his other shoulder pad, I thought about using the skull one from the Khorne Skullcrushers kit, because again, I want them to still look like big Baroque Chaos Knights, not like graceful, lightly armored Slaanesh Hedonites. But this one was just too square and too Khorne-like, so I ended up going with still a big bulky shoulder pad, but something more smooth and round. I really want smooth, broad surfaces because I'm thinking of making these characters chrome, and I really want to show off the curved surfaces and the reflectivity of it. If I don't do chrome, I might do super glossy black. I'm not really sure yet. Now you can see here that it kind of came back to bite me that I used my milliput and green stuff mix just for test fitting. It's a lot softer when it's still wet, and it doesn't really come out in one piece, so I had to do a lot of cleanup and scraping. If I had just used pure green stuff, it would have come out in one piece, but I wasn't really thinking ahead. Okay, and now that the legs are dry enough, it's time to start test fitting and working on the pose for the torso. So now I'm trying to figure out how high up and how far forward or back his body should be. I feel like I kind of put his left leg on wrong. It's too far forward. You can see it doesn't really point towards where his body is going to be in the saddle. So hopefully I can fix that, or maybe just no one will notice. So what I've been doing for these knights is mixing up 2 little balls of green stuff, and this is pure green stuff. It's not mixed with milliput. And I use them to make like upper legs and torso and kind of the haunches region. And then I just stick the torso on top. And what I've been doing is just pinching the top into a little point and sticking the torso on. You can see here that I've used way too much green stuff, but this is just a test fit. So it's okay, I'll just remove some and try it again. So here I'm doing another test fit with a lot less green stuff, and it looks a lot better. And once again, I pinch it and I test fit the torso. I don't press it all the way down because I don't want to squish too much green stuff into there when it's not the final placement. And now it's time for the real thing. So I'll reform my little leg shapes. I'll place some super glue, and I'll push the green stuff on and just hope that it's going to look good because I really have no idea. I'll place a little bit of super glue around the bottom of the torso and then press it on there. While the green stuff is still malleable, I like to kind of twist the torso and turn it in different directions and try to imagine different dynamic poses. Maybe I'll lean it forward or back. In the end, I want to lean it a little bit forward, but this spike from the mount is kind of poking him and it's in the way, so I'm just going to clip that, and then I can get the forward-leaning pose that I'm looking for. And while that's drying a little bit, I'm going to do another test fitting of the weapons. I have to be careful here though because the green stuff is still really soft and it's easy to mess up the pose, which I actually did a couple times off camera. I had to keep putting it back where I want it to go. Once the green stuff is hardened just a little bit for a few minutes, I'm going to sculpt it into hopefully some fabric looking folds. I don't think I did a good job, and the leg, like I mentioned, is kind of pointing the wrong way. So that plate looks really disjointed on his front thigh, but hopefully no one will notice if I don't point it out in person. And you can see I'm also removing extra green stuff because there's always too much. It always squishes out too much. So I just cut some off. Okay, and I'm placing the shoulder pad now, and you'll notice that his arm has been glued on. I did some work off camera because I realized that the unicorn horn shoulder pad wasn't going to work. And that's because when I originally did my test fitting, the legs weren't there. Now that the legs are there, I can't get the arm into a position that I like and that will fit the unicorn horn shoulder pad. And again, now that the arm is attached, I can see that the bottom of it is touching him around the foot area, so I'm going to use some more of that liquid cement to just strengthen the entire figure. Next, I'm going to add the shield arm. And originally what I wanted to do was twist the torso around so that the shield arm was kind of touching the neck of the mount, so it looked like he's holding onto the reins. But when I was test fitting the torso, I didn't like how far I had to twist it. It didn't look natural, so he's just kind of holding the shield up. And then I'll put on another random shoulder pad that looks like it fits with the overall silhouette that I'm going for. I'm kind of bummed that this guy didn't end up with at least one of those sort of flamboyant shoulder pads because I really wanted my knights to each have a wildly different helmet and wildly different shoulder pads from each other, just to show off the extravagance of Slaanesh warriors. But that's alright, in the end I think it still fits with the rest of the unit. Alright, now I'm doing one last test fitting of the head to try to figure out which direction I want it to go, and I feel like looking out over his shield is just more dynamic, so I'm going to go with that. The last step is just to add some green stuff for his neck, glue it on, and he's done. So there's the final Slaanesh marked knight. Now the next challenge with these guys was to rank them up on square bases. Now I started building these guys before I had these square bases, and I had no idea how small these bases were for the old world, so it was really hard to rank them up. I'm definitely going to have to number them so that they go in a certain order, but somehow I was miraculously able to rank them up just fine. There's going to have to be a little bit of a gap between the bases, but if I make a movement tray with a little bit of gap, I think it'll be fine. The biggest concern actually is how long the mount's heads are. I never really thought about that when I was building these guys, but whoever they charge into can't be very tall because the heads of the mounts go over. But you know what? I'm going to solve that problem by never playing a game. I've never played a game of any Warhammer. I just like to build armies. Maybe one day I'll play. I hope to, but it's not really a huge priority, so it's really just about how cool things look. I want to flex my creativity and try to reimagine a lot of these favorite units from the past. And maybe one day I'll play a casual game with someone who doesn't care that all of my units are hanging over the edges. Alright, and that's it. When I paint these guys, I'll come back and show you guys how they turned out. This is my first time doing any sort of a hobby video like this, so if you have any suggestions for how to do it better, or anything else you'd like to see, just leave a comment. If you like this sort of thing, be sure to follow the channel, and check out my Instagram for all of my previous work so far. That's @Calixis_Crusade, or the link's in the description. Alright, thanks for watching.